And does this decision, this point of view, depend on the size of the practice? Or does it depend on the risk of the procedure, so that you could say that very risky procedures, for instance in the primary process, or the triage, or the advice from the practice assistant without the contact of a doctor, if you only have to write things down about these risky procedures. And the third audit question is about the risk analysis, because we wonder which risks are acceptable and who can decide this. The scheme says the practice has to find acceptable solutions which are appropriate for the practice. But is it to the practice, is it to the auditor, or is it the discussion between both persons? It will be so that only a general practitioner who can talk very well will have his practice accredited, and if you're not so handy, that you will have to write everything down to meet requirements. Because in some cases there are guidelines, but sometimes the guidelines don't have very clear standards, only what are striving at. For instance, the content of the doctor's bag. We had in the first year the requirement that you had to have all the medication that was written down in a guideline from the Dutch College. There were 20 ampoules. And then there was a large protest from the doctors, and they said, well, naloxone, which is against intoxication of heroin, why should I have this in my doctor's bag? I've been working here for 20 years, I've never seen a patient with intoxication. And another said, well, this medication, I never use it, and if I need it, I go to the pharmacist and get it. But you can have all kinds of these discussions, so for us it's worthwhile to know what is really the minimal standard for a doctor, and does the college have to decide for the practice or the independent organization?
What is ICT?
ICT, well, that's the same. What is acceptable? We have a check for ICT.
And what is ICT?
Oh, the electronic medical records.
Ah.
And if you have a help desk, for instance, I think most doctors don't know if the persons who work for the help desk can look into the medical records, and how many persons from the help desk can in fact look into the medical record, and if they have signs that they don't look in it or never will tell anybody else about the content of the medical records. And is it acceptable or is it not acceptable? This is a risk control on the web. And the last question we had is what characteristics are acceptable for influencing the requirements? So what can the auditor use as criteria to say, okay, in this case I can accept that you have lower standards? Should it be the size of the practice or the single-handed practices? Should it be so that in the city you have less instruments for the first aid because everyone goes to the hospital immediately? Could it be the practice population which influences the standards of care? Or could it be, and that's for sure, that you have a liaison to the university and teach young doctors how to learn the general practice, be a general practitioner? So, are there any questions till now?
So we really want to use you. We feel a bit feeble about this, but we noticed that it didn't go that well as we had planned it. So now we try to make a shift towards a different system, but there are many pitfalls. There could be many pitfalls. So we'd like to hear your comment on that.
First question: you say you want to have more transparency and to show to the outside that people can trust in the practice. This is the message of the college. But then, how about this independent organization? How independent is it really? Because I think that has a big influence in the public trust. Is it really independent, or is it on the backside under the control of the college?
It is an independent. It is set up as an independent institution.
By whom?
But we are the shareholders. The college is the only shareholder. So there you are.
It cannot be an independent, or it's questionable. if there is public trust in something which has where the college is a shareholder.
That's true. But we hope if the other independent organization which will give a certification to this MPA organization, that will help.
And just asking because we had this discussion also, because we established for the certification of EPA, we established a foundation. And this foundation is, the shares are held by the Bertelsmann Foundation, which is really independent, and the Topaz Europe group. So, but then it was again, some people questioned, we are also Aqua is in this Topaz Europe, so there's influence. So it's always, it can be a big question.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about having consumer organizations in this independent organization? Or just...
Yeah, we have been thinking about that, but they are not yet willing, or they fear, they are anxious to engage to a system. They want to stay independent still. They're not making any real choice for this system.
Excuse me, did you think about to invite payers, insurance or representative of insurance into this body?
They're in a college.
They're in the there's a kind of board who looks at the system, and they're in there. The patients are in there also. Now, so the influence on the instrument and the tools is now multifactorial. Not only IQ, health, and college, but there are other stakeholders involved in that.
And what kind of persons are representing patients then? That's very difficult.
Yeah. Then you talk about the NPCF, so the National Patient / Consumer Unity. Who are they representing? You're not completely sure. And so, but the best there is at this moment, I would say.
They are all parallel discussions, because I was telling yesterday about the transparency project for the government, and there we are in the same groups making the same discussions as we are now having within this system. And they want a lot of transparency, and they want to know everything about the practice, how the performance is, so that the patients can choose. And there are still also questions about cost, because they'd like to have a patient survey every year, but that's quite costly, so no one wants to pay for that. But that's what their wish is about.
What was, maybe I'm just not familiar, what was the main problem of the old system? Why do you want to change it?
Well, I think it's partly because the GPs are slowly taking it up.
Are they going to...
So they have a lot of comments, but...
Are they going to... is it related with the system, or is it related with the GPs?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do not have the answer to that. There's a lot of opposition. They find it too costly, too time-consuming, and what is it worth?
How costly is it?
It's about 1,500 to 2,000 euros per year.
And
So
for the 3-year cycle is 6,000 euro.
Yeah, for a normal size practice. So that's not small money.
Why is it so expensive?
I think the main thing that makes it expensive are the visits.
Yes.
We were talking
So
about
you
that
have
yesterday.
visit every year.
Yeah.
Yes, but we have planned, one of the new things is that not all the measurements are at one moment, so you can spread it during the year, or over 3 years. And that the visits, there's a visit at the start, and that's the main visit, but later on we have tried to make it 1.5 years. We said if the practice has proved that they can work with the improvement plans and go on, then we can visit less frequently, and that will lower the costs.
There's an EU program for small businesses, and it's in all countries actually. And you can practices can apply for this if they are working on quality improvement, and they get 50% back of the and up to a sum of 3,000 euro. And I think it's an advice to everybody of you. This program is in every country, And it's not directed towards practices, but it's directed towards small businesses, but practices are small businesses, so it's there, and the money is normally taken only by management consultants, but you can, with such a program, and we did this for more than 2,000 practices already. So it's 2 million euros for all the practices, but it's very easy even to apply for it. You have to write a little report and then you get the money.
But another thing that's on your question is that the GP's accreditation is quite a difficult entity, and the certification, they know something about what it means. So it's more easy to say, well, I've just I fulfill the requirements for certification, and then it's easier to talk about it. But we don't change the name.
And that's also for the other stakeholders. That's the third thing. So, Freddy.
At this moment, with all the experience you have with cost, with freedom to choice, not to choice, the involvement of the insurance companies, etc., etc., what's your best advice to a country like mine where we don't have anything? What are the main key points to tackle the obstacles on beforehand? What would be your best advice?
Well, I think the best thing is to have the practice for things, to start with measurement of things that are meaningful for the practice. Because the sterilization, I think the main opposition came because they didn't see any problems about it. We have a guidance on infection prevention. You have the elective surgery, small surgery to skin, and you have to do it completely sterile. Well, the GP said, we never see any problems, so why should I do that? And that means that you are discussing all problems that are not really important for the process. But that's just one
that's the problem. We tried to induce some, I think, really necessary things into practices, like being accessible by telephone in the case of emergency. But the GPs, they don't feel it as a problem. And what we can see is that those minimal requirements on hygiene also, it gives a lot of blah, 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 and they're all protesting against it. And I think it's a kind of, you have the wrong discussion by, it's not about those small, tiny things they pick out. And they say, well, I have my doctor's bag, and they had one ampule, well, it was only 3 months out of date. That's not that bad, is it? So it's very funny why they just cannot comply with some minimal requirements.
Couldn't it be that when there are many, maybe too many minimal requirements, that they don't feel it as minimal anymore? Yeah, I'm not within this practice accreditation. I talk to a lot of doctors, but I would suggest first to really start with a minimal set and then slowly build it up over the years. People get used to the system, they start working with protocols, they start writing out and then build it up instead of having to write down everything, and then you don't know what you're doing anymore. They start feeling to get offended, and then you're starting to lose the point. So start small and build it up over the years.
But
and
you
then
have two sets of obstacles. You
people.
have obstacles within practice, and I understand the discussion you have now, how to create ownership, how to create meaningfulness and stuff like that within the practice. But as I understand the Dutch system, you have also had obstacles with respect to implementation, acceptance from the public and insurance companies and so on and so on. What are the obstacles we should take care of in line 2?